This is the Entrepreneur Unleashed Show, episode 83 with Emily Utter. Hi, I'm Patty Keating, and I believe entrepreneurs are the future of the world. Over the past 2 decades, I've built 4 businesses in alignment with my values, giving me the freedom to live where I want and do what I love. I'm here to tell you that creating your successful business does not require struggle or sacrifice. So, how do you create the lifestyle business you love doing only what you love? Welcome to the Entrepreneur Unleashed podcast. I'm excited to bring you Emily Utter today. She's a business coach for adventurous coaches, healers, and service-based entrepreneurs who want to scale their location-independent businesses and work from anywhere in the world. Emily works with coaches, healers, and consultants to get out of the hustle, stop overgiving, and start growing sustainable income that supports a healthy and happy, freedom-filled lifestyle. Her expertise is supporting coaches to scale their businesses to multiple 6 figures and beyond. Emily, hello.
Hi, Patty. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm excited to hear about your story and just dive into how this whole adventure has been for you. Is there anything you'd like to add to your introduction? Anything we should know?
Well, I just have to laugh because my bio is so much about adventure and travel, and I haven't been anywhere this year. It's totally crazy. This has never happened. So it's all about 2020, I guess, is about how to have adventures without running my business from, 3 or 4 different countries a year. So it's been an interesting ride.
That's a total new way of doing business.
Yeah, definitely.
So tell us what inspired you to start all of this.
Well, the quick story is that I had an environmental consulting business. That was my first business. And while I was doing that, I started having the experience, and maybe you can relate, where everyone and their mother wanted to pick my brain. So there was constant coffee invitations and will you have dinner with me or lunch or whatever. And I had this light bulb moment where I thought, there must be a way to get paid for this. There must be a way to get paid for the inherent knowledge that I have about how to have a business that you can run from anywhere. So I kind of put a call out to the universe and said, I want to figure this out. I'd never heard of coaching. I didn't know it was a thing. I was totally green. And one thing led to another. I got invited to one of those kind of classic 3-day coaching events, ended up buying the program that was offered with so much hysteria and tears and anxiety and drama. I'll say that. So for anyone who's, ever gone through a very anxiety-filled decision of hiring a coach and spending, tens of thousands of dollars, I feel you. And that's really where it all began and how I ended up here running my own company now for several years. I think I'm in my 7th year of business now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what kind of obstacles showed up once you made your investment, you're all in, hit the ground running? What happened?
Yeah. Well, I would say embarrassingly, I thought that really all I had to do was pay the money and show up to the calls, go to the retreats, and that somehow my business would grow. And I didn't really take into account that I would have to actually do the work. So that was an interesting realization. And I would say over the years, I have had to battle so many mindset demons, and I've had team members quit with 0 notice in the middle of launches. I've had, at this point, so many crazy things happen. I was sued out of my business name, which I'm not really allowed to talk a whole lot about, but I've just had so many different crazy things happen. And every time I talk about this, of all the different struggles, challenges, failures, face plants that I've had, they've all really built up my resilience. So I certainly don't love those experiences, I'll be honest, but they've really shown me that regardless of what happens, as crazy as it is, I have the strength in me and the support around me to be able to get through anything. And I say that and I'm like, please don't send me anything crazy. Like I'm good.
I'm not being cocky.
Yeah, I'm good. I don't need more growth opportunities. Like, please give me a break here. But yeah, so
So how did you move through like the first challenge when you're just like, what just happened? How did you, what did you pull on to move through that?
Well, you know what's funny? I think in the beginning, I was so naive that it almost felt easier, if that makes sense. So I just would kind of like barrel through and keep moving. And then as my business grew, I realized that in order for my business to keep growing, I had to keep growing as a human. So I really threw myself into personal development, and I still do really deep personal development work on a regular basis. I work with a healer every week. I really highly invest in myself because I realized that that was actually the stumbling block when things would come up. So, 2016 Emily would find drama over what all kinds of different things, right? And so rather than learning how to deal with each of those little scenarios, what I realized was that I had to do the personal growth so that things that would take me out or trigger me just don't trigger me either at all or not to the same extent. And so I don't get taken out of the game
Yeah.
the way that I used to. So yeah, it's almost less tactical and more about, who I'm becoming and who I'm growing into that allows me to be like, okay, here we go again. Ah,
So how did you realize that personal growth was like the answer, like self-awareness, diving into energy work? What
yeah.
led you to that?
I definitely had that feedback coming from mentors. And, when they would share their own experience, it resonated with me. And then as I started to do it myself, it just became glaringly obvious that it was a really important place for me to be invested at all times. And it really did make my life easier. So even though, facing my shadow and taking responsibility for the things about me that aren't so awesome, I got to see what would shift for me if I just kept showing up to that work.
Yeah, awesome. So what would you say the major lessons were that you've learned?
Well, the value of being willing to take personal responsibility is huge. So, I used to be at the very beginning someone who would like blame my coach or blame my clients. And there was just this nonstop kind of tape of like complaint going in my head. Maybe not nonstop, but it was definitely present relatively often. Let's just say that, you know? And I just really, as I started looking at myself and realizing that I was responsible for everything I was experiencing, I really had no other choice but to keep coming back to that place. And I want to say something about this too, because I've gotten this feedback sometimes from friends and sometimes from coaches, mentors, and sometimes even on my team. I think it's really important to be highly responsible. And I think I took it too far. Like I've had this kind of interesting dance where I started to take responsibility for things that weren't mine. There have been times where I've kept someone on my team way too long, who really wasn't a fit, but I was like making it all about me. Or I had a client who, I've had clients I didn't know had like personality disorders and things like that. And so there really were some toxic people in my world. And I kept taking too much responsibility and beating myself up over the issues. And then later started to understand, like, wait a second, hold up. I get to take responsibility for my side of the street.
Yeah.
They get to take responsibility for their side of the street. And if we can't come to an agreement, then it's time to part ways. So I've seriously had quite the journey with this stuff as I've grown.
We all have. Anybody who pursues and is tenacious and keeps figuring it out, it always comes down to this.
Yeah.
It's amazing. This is, I think, my 83rd episode of the Entrepreneur Unleashed stories. They all vary and they're
Yeah.
all very interesting, but at the end of the day, it's about personal growth and just understanding who you are, boundaries, setting up expectations, It's incredible. That's not what I thought I signed up for when I started
I
this.
know, right? I'm like, what is this laptop lifestyle thing? I thought I was just
Right.
going to be sitting on the beach,
That's right.
raking in the dough every
Have
day.
a drink and,
Yeah,
do your
exactly.
thing. So tell us what you're passionate about right now. What's going on with you?
Yeah. So what I am really obsessed with right now, well, I'm a sales queen and I love helping people make a lot of money doing high-end sales. So that's something I'm really known for. But what I love about that and all of my work really, and what I think much of the secret sauce is behind why my clients get great results is self-expression and personal power. So those are kind of embedded, woven in, snuck in to all of my programs. And that's been a big part of my journey as well, is just giving myself permission to be who I am, to wear my funky earrings, to,
Yeah.
put photos of myself at Burning Man online and not feel like I have to have this, business persona, Emily, that's
Mhm.
different from my at home or out with my friends persona. And so that's what I'm really obsessed with and passionate about right now, is just being able to recognize those subtle places where any of my clients, and of course I take myself through the same processes, but where any of my clients are not really fully expressing themselves through their business. So
Yeah.
just today I was catching up with a client who I worked with a couple of years ago, and when she first came to me, she was selling herself as a weight loss coach, and I was like, this just is off. And I feel like you're supposed to be doing something super woo woo, kind of witchy. I don't know what it is. And it was very funny feedback to give someone who came to me in a totally different niche. And she took my advice, went deep into it, started doing yoga nidra and all this spiritual coaching. And her first program, she put a bunch of people in it. Like, she was kind of a success out the gate once she tapped into what was true for her, rather than what the marketing rules or
Yes.
old school coaching rules would have told her to niche into. And that's what I love. So she's not the only client where I've kind of like slapped him around and said, that's not what you're supposed to do.
That's not who you are.
Yeah, it's not who
Let's
you
get
are.
real. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that.
So
We're our core values at the Entrepreneur Unleashed, our number one core value is self-expression.
I love it.
And number two is freedom. And that's really the business we're in, creating freedom through self-expression and creating the freedom to self-express, which has to
Yeah.
come first. And I love it. It's important work. And I think it's even more important right now. Like, people need to really let loose and just be who they are and take a
Yeah.
stand and do their work. So in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And especially as the industry is growing, there's a million people who do what I do, and really why people are drawn to me, and I'm sure why people are drawn to you. It's like who we are and how we show up, and they either resonate with it or they don't. But there's a bajillion life coaches, a bajillion healers, business coach, like whatever niche you name it, there's a ridiculous number of options.
Yeah.
And it really is that self-expression that will have someone stand out, be magnetic, and be able to scale their business with a lot more ease than when they're kind of holding that all in and doing what they're supposed to do.
Exactly. And a lot of people don't even know. That's why we developed the Entrepreneur Code, where people understand what's my number one core value, what are my four supporting values, and those four supporting values are actually the ingredients for my number one core value. And when I use all of that, there is no competition.
Yep.
And people don't know that. They think there's a way they have to do it.
Right.
I just need to buy the program that shows me how to do it.
Yeah. And this is one of the things, I don't know if you experience this, that drives me crazy with my own clients, where, I think sometimes they view me and my team as definitely having the right answer or the magic secret pill. And we're always pushing back on them, like, no, like, does that feel like you? Can you put your energy behind that? And yeah, I love that you and I have the same top values, because it's just fun. No wonder we're talking.
I know, right? So what's your vision for the next 5 years for your business?
It's so funny. I very rarely think that far out. So I do have,
self-expression, creativity, right?
yeah. It's like, well, when I was in the environmental world, I never thought I would do anything different than that. So who knows, but I do have a vision for, and this isn't going to be possible anytime soon because of the state of the world, but I do have a vision for a really cool, really different multi-day event all about self-expression. But I mean,
Oh,
my vision is like we're going to be in the middle of nowhere in Bali or like some
yeah,
kind of crazy warehouse in LA where we're just diving really deep into self-expression, very little business talk, but
yeah.
with the goal of people getting to experience themselves in a different way. So it's like this juicy idea that I have. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's percolating, and
Yes.
whenever we get to travel and do big events
Yeah,
again, then I'll start kind of like really going for it.
that's gonna be cool.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
People so need that, like
Yeah.
just letting it loose. We
Yeah.
learn so much about ourselves when we allow ourselves just to be who we are and crazy and wild and quiet and all of it, you know?
Yeah.
So tell me, what's the best advice you ever received?
Oh my gosh, the best advice I ever received. That's such a good question. I think it's probably the cliche of just keep going and don't quit before the breakthrough, that there always is a breakthrough that comes after a breakdown.
Yeah.
There always is. And every time I'm in a breakdown moment, I'm just like, oh God, here we are. Like, where's the breakthrough? And often it takes much, much longer
Yeah.
than I want it to, but there is always a breakthrough coming.
Mhm.
And it's just a practice of surrender and trust, and one foot in front of the next
Love it.
over and over again until it becomes revealed why we had whatever challenge we did.
Yeah, they were like, oh, I never could have plotted that one for myself.
Yeah.
What would you say is the biggest personal development or personal growth that you've encountered across everything on this journey?
As far as something I've invested in,
No, like just your own personal growth, personal development, just from being in business in your life, in your experience of jumping into entrepreneurship.
yeah. Well, one of the things that's been really big for me is like recognizing, but really understanding at a deep level the power of our way of being, and realizing that however I'm being, whatever attitude I am approaching something with, whatever mindset I have will get translated out, whether I ever speak it or not. And that there's so much power in those energetic pieces, and that what really at the end of the day will allow me to be successful is continuing to do that work on my way of being, so that I can show up as the woman I want to show up as and be received and experienced in a way that I am proud of, can stand behind, would be happy to have, you know, paraded around the internet. That's really been a big piece for me.
Yeah. So, what about give us um, the gadgets and tools? What kind of things do you use to make life easier?
Well, I think for me, it's more habits. Like if you saw my lack of setup, you would laugh. I've actually never had a desk. Like the entire life of my business, I've never had a desk. I did belong to a co-working space when I lived in San Francisco. So technically there was a desk I could use, but I've never had a desk. I've got my lights. But for me, it's actually much, much more about behavior routine. So I swear by blocking my calendar until 11 a.m. every single day so that I can do my exercise and my self hypnosis practice in the morning, definitely a coffee or two. Um, and speaking of way of being, I know that I'm a completely different person when I have the time to do those things or not. So I know my team probably wishes that I started work earlier in the day. It would be easier to book things on my calendar and things like that. But I also know that they experience me completely differently if I've worked out or if I haven't. And actually, through COVID, I kind of got really off track with that stuff. I've now hired a trainer. I had a great workout this
Oh,
morning.
cool.
So I'm in a completely different place. So for me, it's much less about gadgets and more about what are the things I know set me up for success. I am not one of those 5 a.m. weirdos at all. But I do know that when I get to move my body in the morning and get in some meditation or self hypnosis, I'm a totally different human.
Absolutely. I'm the same way. I don't put anything on my calendar before 10.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
You've got 11. I'm a little jealous. I'm like, ooh, maybe I should
Try
speak
it
about
out.
it. But I go to the beach, I do a run, I do a
Yeah.
workout, I meditate, I write out my day, I write out my creation, my future. I let myself be creative and expressive, and then I'm ready to show up for work. If I just went straight to work, it would not be pretty. I would just be just antsy, I think.
Yeah. And for me, not productive at all.
Uh, yeah. It's that move your body thing. So
Yep.
important.
Definitely.
Okay, what about blogs, books, podcasts? What are you listening to? What are you reading?
Yeah, so I am super into all things the subconscious right now.
Yeah.
So I've been listening to a book called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. I'm on like the second or third time listening to it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's been really fun. Even today, I've had so many crazy little synchronicities happen. It's like I think of something and then it happens instantly. It's kind of nutty. So I'm really having fun playing with the magic of that because it really
Yeah.
feels like magic, even though it's scientifically based.
Yeah.
So I'm digging that. As far as podcasts go, I love Jim Fortin. He's awesome. Trying to
Mm-hmm.
think of what else I got obsessed with recently. I listened to Gina DeVee's new book and I was surprised. I didn't think that I would like it. I've never like been a big Gina fan. I've not been a non-fan, but
Yeah.
she never really resonated with me, but a friend recommended it and I loved it. Same with Glennon Doyle's Untamed book. I absolutely loved that.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so that's kind of what I've been jamming on recently.
That's cool. We'll put all
Yeah.
those in the show notes, you guys, as well as ways that you can connect up with Emily. So, looking back, if you were to do this all over again, what would you tell your younger self?
Just go all in with self-expression from the very beginning and don't feel like you have to be like somebody else. I
Yeah.
used to think I had to be this very mellow, meditates every day for 30 minutes, calm, peaceful type of person instead of like the spaz and free spirit that I actually am. And I just wish I had known that I could trust that and that it's okay to put pictures of myself in my underwear on the internet because I go to Burning Man. It's not that I'm just like modeling myself in my underwear, but that it like these aspects of me are what make me attractive to the right people. And I'm totally cool repelling the wrong people. It's perfect.
Yes, I love that so much. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and who you are. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks so much for having me. This was really fun.
Yeah. Hello and welcome. I'm recording this episode from my home office during self quarantine as we were all asked to stay home due to the coronavirus. If you like what you hear and you'd like to hear more, please join me in my Facebook group. It's called the Unleashed Entrepreneurs. You can search that on Facebook. Come on over. It's a community of thriving entrepreneurs making a difference in the world, doing what they love, and changing lives. Hope to see you there. Enjoy the show. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Have you ever wondered what you could do to make your own business and grow it online? Head on over to pattykeating.com and take the entrepreneur code. You'll discover your unique value, your personality style, and how you can combine those two into a thriving business that helps people and lets you make money doing what you love. I'll see you there. Bye for now.